Welcome, everyone, to another edition of CPG Insiders. I'm your host, Mark Young, the co-host, Justin Gerard. Justin, one of the things that we tell people on this show a lot is who, not how. The Dan Sullivan book, Dan and Ben Hardy. And who, not how, folks, is simply this. It is not important for you to know how to do everything. It is important for you to know who can do everything. And that's the premise of Dan's book, Who, Not How. Well, today we're going to interview somebody that Dan would call a super who. And a super who is someone who you can contact who knows the who's that can fix your problem or work in your business. So a who that finds who's. So our guest today is our friend Les Hamilton. Now, Les is from a company called CPG Integrated. Les himself has been in the industry forever, like I have. He's been, and Les, I'll let you tell your story a little bit instead of me telling it. You know your story better than I do.
Yeah, no, thank you. First of all, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be with you guys. And we have a great following, and it's always fun to talk about business and entertain some folks along the way. I've been in the industry, like you said, for quite a long time, about 30 years. I've had retailer experience. I was a buyer category manager at Target. Right out of college, Target brought me up to Minneapolis. I was a category manager there for about 10 years, multiple different categories. I think I had 9 jobs in 10 years. So they have a tendency to move you around for whatever reason, which is fine. So I had that retailer experience. I then went to the Emerson Group, an agency. So I have some agency experience. I believe I was employee number 12 with Scott Emerson there. And it was always fun, in the early days to really grow the business. Had some great clients there. So I learned kind of the agency side of the business. And then from there, went actually to work for a manufacturer, Highlands. And Highlands is an all natural homeopathic over-the-counter drug medication company. And I was a chief revenue officer there. And it was fun to really lead the sales for the team and the company. But it, gave me then that manufacturing experience. So when I started this new company about 6 months ago, I had that retailer, I had that agency, I had that manufacturing experience. And it's like, how can I, put together, a company that really helps emerging brands in the CPG, OTC, health and beauty aid space to really help them bring their products to market. And, you hit it right on the head there, Mark, where you said, it's the who, not the how. Mm-hmm. You don't necessarily have to know how to do everything, but you got to know.
You can't know how to do everything.
Oh, my word, no. Clearly, I'm clearly not the smartest person in the room, but it's the network, right? And so if you never burn a bridge throughout your career and you have all of these connections, it's like, how do you try to figure out how to monetize your network? And so that's kind of what I've done is in developing this company called CPG Integrated. It is a fractional senior level executive organization. And we focus on, like I said, those emerging brands that are usually $1 to $20, $30 million in size, could be larger, that are maybe typically founder run, that maybe they're, the founders are running sales and maybe the wife's running marketing. They're still kind of a family operation. And they get to a point where they realize, okay, we've got 10, 12 accounts, we're growing. We need to hire a VP of sales or a VP of marketing or whatnot. And that's kind of where I come in, because they look at that nut that they have to cover and the salary and the bonus and the benefits and the expenses. And they're like, man, we can't afford that. And so I can come in with a senior level fractional executive and do that in a fraction of the time for a fraction of the cost. Mm-hmm. So I integrate those people into the companies underneath my 5 pillars of business. And that would be sales, marketing, supply chain, finance, and IT. And those are typically the areas that these emerging brands run into a wall when they're starting to grow and they don't really understand how to get to the next level. And so that's kind of what I do is I help them with that.
Now you think about what you just heard there, everybody, and that is he's been a buyer, he's been an agency or a broker with probably the biggest brokerage company in the country, and he's been the client, he's been the manufacturer. So you've been in all the seats. The only seat you haven't been in is actually our seat as the ad agency. But you've been in the seat where you had to deal with the ad agency. So tell us, when we're looking at these senior executives, let's say I want to hire somebody. Let's say I want to hire a VP of sales.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go out there and I'm going to look for a real VP of sales, somebody with a lot of experience, somebody who's got a Rolodex, somebody who knows what they're doing. What's that candidate going to cost me if that's a full-time hire?
Oh, full-time hire, you're between $250,000 and $300,000. Again, by the time you do expenses, benefits, salary, bonus, all of those things put together, that's a $250,000 to $300,000 net that you've got to cover on that.
Now, let's say, and explain this, most of these companies, do they need somebody 40, 50 hours a week?
My opinion would be no. And the reason I say that is because senior level executives have, like you said, have the Rolodex. They have a proven track record. They know who to call. And so when you hire a senior level executive, I would not expect it to take a 40, 50 hour a week job in order for them to handle, the job is either marketing or sales and whatnot. The other thing, Mark, too, is I've established a boutique broker network throughout the U.S. where I have a broker network calling on every single retailer in the United States. I have contracts with them. And so a lot of times I have several clients that are using me as a kind of a commission clearinghouse where, hey, we just want to pay one person and then I will manage that, kind of a master broker.
Yeah, master broker
type service. And so I do that as well.
So, and here's the thing that always hits me. So, and Justin, you'll know what I'm talking about. It is 2 days before you're going to go on vacation. And you're leaving for 10 days. How much work do you get done in those last 2 days? You get a week's worth of work done in those last 2 days, don't you?
Well, yeah, because you have to.
Exactly. And I sometimes wonder if that isn't the case with a fractional executive, that I have 10 hours a week that I'm dedicating to this client. I still have this list of things that needs to get accomplished. So I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to use those 10 hours really smart to reach the goal and get everything done that I have to get done.
You're going to mobilize the troops because they know who to call, and they may not know, how to do everything, and they don't, I can tell you, but it's the who. Again, back to the who. They know who to call and get things done. It's funny, Mark, I when I was at Target and managing some people, I used to tell them, it's like, you work 80 hours a week before vacation. You take that 40-hour week off, then you work 80 hours a week after you get back. It's like, I just work more in the 2 week span of time than for not taking, if I hadn't taken it off, it would have been great. So yeah, you're right.
It's really about who you know. And I'm going to give you an example. I'm not going to use any names here, but Justin and I were at a trade show and met with a prospective client who's been trying to get some business to happen for, 6 months to a year. Hadn't made anything happen. We walked in the booth, looked at what he needed, picked up my cell phone, called somebody else who I knew was on the show floor and said, can you come over to this booth and look at something? And we got their business moving. Mm-hmm. And that particular guy just said to me, he goes, you just did in 5 minutes what we've been trying to do for 6 months. And it wasn't because I was smarter than him. It was because I know who to go to. Mm-hmm. Like yourself, we have the Rolodexes. For those of you that are young people, Rolodex was a little thing that sat on our desk with little cards in it. And it would spin around in a circle and we would look up people's phone numbers.
It was always a challenge. Do you organize it by company or do you organize it by the last name of the person?
Mm-hmm. But yes, we used to have these things on our desk with a knob on it, and we would turn it, and these cards would flip around. Have you ever seen a Rolodex, Justin?
I'll Google that later. Well,
have you ever seen one?
Yes, I've seen them.
You have seen them. Okay.
I have seen a Rolodex. Come on, man. Come on. Okay.
Well, we have to keep, I have to keep reference to this. I'll make a reference to Yellow Pages And I've had younger people say, "What's a yellow pages?"
Oh yeah. Yep.
They've
Yeah.
never seen one.
Yeah. I mean, what wasn't that just another name for a booster seat? I thought back in the day as
Well,
well.
it was also something that, like Franco Columbo and Arnold used to use to tear in half to show how strong they were.
Yes. Well, yeah.
Oh, there you
Obviously,
go.
it was a great
Yes,
negotiation tool. Yeah. Yeah. It was so versatile. It really was. They should
they
bring
were
that back.
very useful.
Yeah.
But and it's funny because, and we used to always have a joke about the yellow pages because we would run a TV campaign and then the client would say, "Well, I don't know if the TV's working, but our yellow pages really jumped up." Yeah, it's because that's how they looked up your phone number. No, it must be the yellow. Okay, yeah, let's turn the TV off and see how well the yellow pages does. So, anyways, yes, Google replaced the yellow pages.
It sure
So,
did.
what kind of jobs can someone fill with a fractional executive? I mean, CEO, COO, what are the jobs?
Yes. You can fill just about any senior level executive with a fractional position. So now my company specifically, like I said, focuses on those 5 pillars. I don't necessarily touch the C-suite. I'm more in the VP level for sales and marketing, supply chain, so forth. With the exception of a CFO in finance, I have actually placed a CFO. But there's a lot of positions you can replace. And I would think that COVID ushered in kind of a new realm of working, and kind of everybody went back home and they realized, I don't necessarily need to be in the office to get things done. I've been in my home office for over 20 years. After I left Target, I've been here, and it's effective for me. But at the same time, I think COVID did usher in this new way of working, and I think people are more accustomed to not going into the office, and they realize they can get some stuff done. And so I think it's been more acceptable for people to work from home or work fractionally because of what COVID did for us.
So, here's one of the things that comes to mind. For most of the emerging and startup CPG companies, founder driven, today you are running the biggest company you've ever run. And tomorrow you will be running the biggest company you've ever run. If it is growing, it is going to continuously be the biggest business you have ever run. So I think these are good opportunities because, give me an example. Let's say I'm running a $5 million Amazon brand.
Mhm.
And now I want to expand into brick and mortar. Okay. I'm an online retailer. I don't know anything about brick and mortar. However, I know from reading our books or listening to this podcast at any length, I know that 80% of the volume is in brick and mortar. 80% of all the CPG products are sold out of a store. I'm doing $5 million on Amazon. How do I get out of that small pool into the big pool? Would you have people that would have that experience where somebody can come in and say, yes, I know how to break a product into brick and mortar. I've done this before. I know how to get shelf space. I know how to prepare you to be prime time ready. I know how to show you what EDI is, and I know how to show you what One World is and ECRM and all these other things.
Absolutely. You hit the entire business model is based upon companies like that, meaning, and let me kind of I'm going to digress a little bit. So from an Amazon business, if I have a new client coming to me that wants to, either break into the US market or they've just kind of started, whatever, I stress that they have to be on e-com, Amazon, Walmart.com, TikTok Shop, Meta, Instagram. All the digital aspects have to come first before you go to brick and mortar. Because I will tell you, I've been in numerous meetings with large retailers where you're sitting in front of the buyer, and in the meeting, and we're presenting and having a conversation, they're on their phones and they are immediately checking you out digitally. Mm-hmm. What are your reviews on Amazon? What's your TikTok view? So they are immediately going there and making some decisions based upon what they see digitally.
Yeah, they want to see those reviews on Amazon, don't they?
Absolutely. So I've been pushing a lot of people, look, you've got to get now, once you get your digital presence where it should be, the question was, how do you bring that to market? I absolutely have a team of professionals that has done that before with multiple brands, with multiple categories, even some of the alternative channels, which like a C-store and so forth. And so I have some executives that have brought numerous products, whether it be RX to OTC, brand new brands, brand new to the country. And so we know how to get it done. And again, aligning ourselves with those boutique brokers who know each of those accounts intimately also helps us, get into and get products on the shelf for our clients.
So one of the questions I have for you, Les, just backing up even a little bit more, right? Because again, we're talking about emerging brands, and we're talking about mostly, especially when we work with, we're talking about a lot of, as Mark puts it, founders who have been bootstrapping this thing and putting it together, and their team may be 5 people, woo, crazy, right? But they're, so where do they start, right? So if they're looking at the business, how do they look at the business to understand what needs they may have to even, or are there certain triggers that need to be paying attention that you could advise them to say, hey, you're right about at that point where you're reaching that ceiling and you need to start reaching out for help here. What are some of those things?
Yeah, a lot of it is rate of sale. Again, going back to the client that has an e-commerce Amazon type business, once they're hitting certain economies of scale on sales, it will make sense then to bring that over to brick and mortar. But your question is, so who's kind of the first executive or who's that first fractional person I hire? It's interesting. When I started a company, I literally thought it was going to be more of a sales and marketing driven company. And my first 2 contracts were a CFO and a supply chain person. Mm-hmm. And so again, it depends on where they are from a scale standpoint. But as we talk emerging brands, I've been stressing recently a marketing person, right? You've got to be able to talk to your consumer, your person that's buying your product. And that marketing person that we can integrate, I mean, CPG integrate into that company, needs to be able to talk the lingo to the ad agency that they hire. So just by hiring a marketing person doesn't mean the job's done there. That person will turn right around and have to hire an agency to do all of the stuff that they do, very similar to what Mark's running at Jekyll and Hyde. Hire that agency so then they can talk the lingo and basically translate it back to the person that owns a company that's paying the bills. So I've been directing people from a marketing person first, then we'll go sales, because you've got to get that stuff. I mean, the retailers are going to want to know, how are you I just gave you the real estate on my shelves. How, that's great, but now it's your job to pull that product off the shelf. It's one thing for sell in, but it's the sell through. It's that pull. And the only way you can get the pull is through marketing. And so I've been stressing marketing people.
So Les, in your opinion, when new brands are out meeting with buyers today, what's the most important thing that buyer wants to see? And I'll give you a little, set this up. For us, there's always a tendency the buyer wants to tell them all about the product and tell them all about the company. And we're always trying to tell people your company needs to be stable and show that they can financially meet their obligations. And you need to be manufacturing a quality product, and that is the cost of entry. That's not the reason you get in.
Table stakes, absolutely.
Right. That's table stakes. That's the cost of entry. So when describe, like you were a Target buyer, so describe my 20-minute meeting with you at Target. What are we going to talk about?
Oh, that's a great question. So, and I, having gone from Target as the buyer over to the agency side and the presenting, it was the best to help clients. They come in with a 30-page deck for a 20-minute meeting. And it starts off with a picture of the factory. It's like, nobody wants to see a photo of your factory. They all assume that it's efficacious, that you're following all the. Literally, you could rip out. There's usually 1 or 2 pages in that 30-page deck that the buyer's actually going to rip out and keep. And you could very well hand back your presentation, or the presentation is going in the trash on the way out. And that's typically on those 2 pages. It's your item information, meaning cost, recommended retail,
right, image, case size, so on and so forth.
And the other would be, what are you doing to market it? And in that could be some hey, your competition currently carries it, or this is something you're trying to get, and CVS or Walgreens already has it, and hey, you need to bring whatever that is. So it's marketing, competition who carries it, and really cost retail as to how you're going to position it. But a lot of it is too, what are you doing? What are you spending? How are you helping me, i.e. retailer, Mr. Retailer, to pull that item off of my shelf? Not necessarily CVS, but what are you doing and every retailer has their own loyalty card, in-store media, whatever it would be. And sometimes you do have to invest in those in order for that product to move. But there's usually, Mark, 1 or 2 pages in that entire deck that a buyer is going to rip out.
Right. How are you going to bring new customers to my store?
You got it.
So if you go to Walmart or whoever,
yeah,
and your idea is, all I need to do is get this product on the shelf and Walmart customers will come and buy it. 1, you're not going to get on the shelf. 2, guess what? They're not going to show up and buy it because there's 148,000 SKUs in that Walmart store, and it's impossible for somebody to walk around and read them all.
Yep.
So they have to show up with you on a shopping list. They have to come to that store with you in mind before they got there. Now, they might show up because I need something for back pain, and maybe they don't have a brand, and maybe there's that whole 5x5, 5 feet in 5 seconds. Who's going to win? But guess who's going to win? The brand that's familiar.
Top of mind.
Right. So even if I'd walked in and I didn't have a brand in mind, the brand that's going to win is the one I recognize. It's the same way we vote. Name awareness wins elections. So, I mean, it's how our brain works. It's because our brain defaults to the easy answer. And the easy answer is the familiar. What do I recognize? So it's funny when we have these meetings. I was at a meeting once, and I always use this as an example. So I was at a retailer meeting, and you can picture this because you've done this so many times. The buyer is sitting across the table with a pair of reading glasses on the end of her nose, staring into a laptop, not even looking up.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
The client and the broker are pitching the product about how efficacious the product is and how amazing the product is and how happy customers are with the product. And she looks up over the glasses and says, "Do you think people come in here and tell me how their product doesn't perform?"
Exactly. Yeah, the best meetings I had, Mark, were the ones that we never opened the presentation. That you just
not surprised. Just left it behind.
You talk about the business. And quite frankly, as a salesperson, you ought to be able to give, quote unquote, that presentation or have a discussion with the buyer without ever having to open the presentation. You ought to be able to give that pitch.
Yeah, to me, I'll tell you what I like to do and get your feedback.
Yeah.
I like to quickly say who's in the room, what category are we in, what are we doing? We've been around this long, we're financially stable, we are whatever, we have this unique benefit, we're FDA approved, whatever the case is, get that out of the way quick. Now, let me show you how I'm going to bring new traffic into your doors. That's literally my line. Let me show you how I'm going to bring new traffic into your doors. And now I have their attention.
Because that buyer knows they're not just buying the item you're presenting, they're also buying other items within that category, within that store. So if they're a wise buyer, they like what you're saying and how you kick that meeting off.
So then what I go through is I always try to position stuff. I have this in my new book coming out, what I call the 3 levers of retail. And I try to figure out which one of those levers can we pull on. So am I a category expander? So Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, right now you have a category where people buy one product in the category, but my product's a companion product where people are going to leave your store with 2 bottles of stuff. They're still going to buy the one they buy now, and they're going to buy an extra one. That's a great story. Or this is a category that is normally visited by 18 to 34-year-olds. but my product appeals to 55 plus, and I'm going to bring a new demographic to this part of the store who normally isn't here. Or this, I have a product where your typical customer is spending $10 and I'm going to upgrade them into a $15 sale. And I'm going to bring more people to the store to do it. So is that what you wanted to hear as a buyer?
Yes, it's how are you going to raise my average market basket in price? It's got to be margin accretive. It's got to be, and every buyer knows what their average cost is per planogram, their average margin. So as you're looking at the entire scope of the 300 items you have in cough cold, if you know that your average margin is 37%, I'm throwing out numbers, and you have a new item coming in that's going to be 42, that's a positive. If you have a company coming in and saying, hey, your average price is $9.99, this item is $6.99 and 35 margin, I'm probably not interested.
Right.
Because it's going to bring everything down. And so you do as a manufacturer need to understand that.
Yeah, we have clients who call us and say, well, we've got the best product because the current unit is a 4-ounce unit that sells for $9.95, and we can retail a 6-ounce unit for $7.99. So I'm like, so you want Walmart to sell at a lower margin and a lower price fewer times per year?
Yeah, take them out of the market longer.
Right.
How does that benefit Walmart? Yeah, but the customers are going to be happier. How does it benefit Walmart? You're going to have fewer purchases per year at a lower price. Now, Les, I don't know about you, but I always tell people, and Justin does too, if you're given the choice in your product, be the premium. Because I think it's easier to sell a premium product in than it is to sell a competitive product in. What do you think?
Yes. And you know what? You can always come down. You can never go up. So if you come in low, it is incredibly difficult to position your brand, your price, whatever it is, up once you've come in at a lower rate.
A stat that I always found interesting was that, and you'll know this, that in most categories in retail, there's a 10x gap between the bottom product and the top product. So if you've got a $1.99 product in the category, there's probably a $10 or $12 product in the category. You can buy, an example is you can buy a $3 can of hairspray, you can buy a $15 can of hairspray. But the 10x margin at the top only has on average a 4x increase in manufacturing cost. So the product that sells for 10 times more usually only costs up to 4 times more to make, has the bigger margin, has the bigger profit for the retailer. And guess what else? You now have money to advertise it.
Money to spend on marketing. Absolutely.
So no retailer, and I'm letting you hear it from a buyer, no retailer is looking for your larger volume, low price item.
Right.
Because if they want to do that, they'll make a store brand. So talk to our audience about store brands, if you don't mind.
Sure. I was the private label buyer for all of OTC at Target. 25 years ago. And Target, this is back when we launched Target Brands, was right before it was up and up. And anytime a national brand item hit a certain threshold or whatever, I would evaluate and say, okay, does it make sense to bring in a private label product to private label against that item?
And how good did the product have to be for you to look at it?
Dollar wise, back in the day, it was probably, if it was doing close to $1 million in an item, I would say, okay, you know what? Now we should probably look at it. Now, if it was an NDA item or item that was protected by, and you couldn't private label it yet,
right? Patented,
you had to work around that. But and then I always had a pricing parity amongst national brand and private label. So I never wanted to be so low that you're A, not making as much margin, but B, also you lose sales if you're trading. You never want to trade people down. If it's an entry level into that category, which a private label typically is, I always wanted a 25% pricing parity. So I would quote unquote tie my item. So if it's a Tylenol 100 count, and if they were at $9.99, I'm at $7.49. And if they went on ad, I would keep that pricing parity. So I would fluctuate based on it. Hey, it's on a temporary price reduction this week, and so you never want to have your private label be higher than your brand, because that makes no sense. And so sometimes you'll see retailers out there where you look and you do the math, you're like, the brand is a better buy than the private label, because they haven't looked at what happens with the promotional price. But retailers use private label as an entry level into that category, but also as a margin play, because they don't use that margin as a manufacturer to advertise, because they're not advertising their brand. They don't own the brand.
Right. So if they're making 36 points on my product, what are they making on the private label?
Anywhere between 65 and 70.
Right. So they can pick up those 25 points of reduction in price by margin.
Absolutely.
How often did you go back to the manufacturer of the branded product and offer them the job of making the private label?
Oh, we would discuss in terms of is the brand is Procter & Gamble making Vicks? Can you make my private label Vicks?
Right.
There were a few that we had. We did, I actually took I consolidated my vendors in classic retailer form, vendor consolidation. I went from 27 manufacturers making my private label down to 9. I just want to be more important to fewer people. I did have, I think, one of the brands making my private label, but primarily I went with more of the bigger companies, the Perigos at the time.
The Perigos,
doing that. So it was, again, you become more important to them. So you don't, they diversify their portfolio, but you're very focused on who the manufacturers you're dealing with are.
So now if you were consulting to a young brand today, and we're seeing this a lot less, we're seeing a lot of our clients today where Walgreens will like an item and not even be interested in launching the brand. They just want to go straight to private label. Because it used to be, as you know, I bring the private label in once the branded product is selling so that I can say compare to or comparable to.
Yep.
But now we're seeing, and Justin, you've had these talks where they want to go straight to private label and not carry the brand. What would your advice be to that client?
Yeah, I struggle with that, because I struggle with it from the retailer standpoint. If they're not going to market, that brand. So if I'm a manufacturer, I'm coming in and I wanted a brand, but now you're going to make me a private label. My first question would be, well, how are you going to, Mr. Retailer, how are you going to market this to bring in the consumer? Because I'm dead on the shelf if nobody knows about it, if you're not going to do anything to promote this. So it's I've always been a fan of brand first, build that customer, and then if there is a lower priced option in a private label down the road, typically maybe 2 years down, then you bring in that private label. So it's a struggle, and I know every manufacturer wants to get sales immediately, but understanding your sales strategy is very key from a manufacturer, so you don't come in being blindsided by the retailer saying, we don't want your brand, I want to do private label. You have to have an answer for that ready to go.
We're seeing this a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I struggle with that. Have you had some clients that have gone that private label route and not done the brand?
We have. And I always try to tell them it's a race to the bottom.
It is.
Because they're just gonna do an RFP on you in 3 years and see who can make your product for the least amount of money.
Because on day one they've already sucked all the margin out, and so again, there's no margin to promote, no margin to market, to advertise, to tell the consumer about the product, because it's just a price game. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a problem. What other issues? What do you see new about the landscape right now compared to where it was 5 years ago, let's say? So how is the brick and mortar world different now than it was pre-COVID?
Yeah, I would say one of the things I'm seeing, and it's true even pre-COVID, and then during COVID, is there is a need for everyone to understand the logistics of their supply chain. Mm-hmm. from raw materials to finished goods. So basically from raw materials to on the shelf, quite frankly. There is so much data out there. There is so much information from where my product, RFID tracker on the truck. You can literally say, hey, my product's on this truck, pallet number 7, and it's in Memphis, Tennessee right now, and it's coming. But if you don't understand raw material, how tariffs can impact pricing, if you haven't purchased your raw materials ahead of time, caps, bottles, glue, whatever, labels, whatever it is, and have that understanding of how that can impact your profit margins down the road, I'm seeing a real big need for VPs of supply chain that understand how all of that logistics works. It used to be you'd order, you make an order. I even back at Target, I was still faxing orders, right? I mean, that's how old I am, but faxing orders in.
I remember when we first got our first fax machine.
Thermal paper on the roll. And so, your faxing order, literally you'd get the order. They've got a warehouse, like they turn around, they kind of pack it up. Maybe they call a truck and they ship it. It is so much more complex now. You're not in every distribution center. You're not, everything from what's your case pack size, right? Oh, I'm shipping 48. Nobody wants 48. So what's your interpack? Interpack, what's an interpack? I mean, so just the understanding of what fits on a shelf, why a 3-pack would be probably good versus a 12-pack. And, you look at, okay, if only 9 fit on the shelf and your case pack is 12, that it means those 3 units immediately go back to the back room. Good luck. Hopefully you find them later. But the system still thinks they have. I mean, there's a whole bunch of logistical supply chain operations pieces that manufacturers have to understand, or you'll lose profitability very, very quickly.
Right. And then what a Walmart wants to see is infinitely different than what a Costco wants to see.
Yes. Yeah. So you have to be well versed in their lingo. It's kind of like the marketing example, right? You have to have a marketing person to understand the marketing agency. You have to have a supply chain person to understand truly what the Costco, they'll give you binders of information as to how to ship them. And you have to understand each one of them. What's a G10? What's the One World Sync? All of the stuff to set up an item. And that's where a lot of times your brokers and your boutique brokers can come in and help you with that. They understand a little bit more as to what's going on, but yeah, they're definitely effective.
Yeah, and this is why having, that fractional expert might be a big help, because let me give you an example. I'll just ask you this question. I bet you I know what your answer is going to be. What happens when I ship Target late 3 times in a row? Or what happens when Target ordered 1,500 pieces and 1,000 showed up 2 or 3 times in a row?
Well, aside from the phone call, you'll probably immediately get from the buyer saying, where's my product? You won't be on the shelf very long. It is absolutely critical that if you get an order, you ship in full, complete, and on time. If you do not, everybody has a report card. Everybody's watching this. There's original fill rate, revised fill rate. There's, and stuff does happen. People understand that. But
right. We're having terrible weather this week.
I get it. Right. Yeah. But I will tell you, working with a previous company
who shall remain nameless.
No names. When you have a tendency to ship Walmart at a 30% fill rate for more than 3-4 weeks, you're not going to be on the shelf much longer. It's just because that is such valuable real estate. They have 13 other people behind you that can fill that spot, that can drive their sales, and quite frankly, your product is probably not that differentiated. And
right.
So
there's no money on an empty shelf, right?
None. They're not selling space. They're selling. You have to have product on the shelf.
And some of these companies, if you didn't pay attention to your agreement, some of these companies can give you some very stiff fines for missing a shipment, right? Or even being late on a shipment.
Oh, 100%. So you will be fined for not, it's like you're not living up to what you committed to, right? Hey, I commit to bring your product, new product. I'm going to ship you complete on time. But if you don't do that and it's consistent, they will absolutely fine you. And I will tell you, it is quite expensive. Not only the fines, but if you are removed from the shelf, there's markdowns. It's returned to vendor. There are a whole bunch of other fees on top of that. So if you don't get your supply chain right the first time, it can be very, very costly and potentially put you out of business if you're not careful.
So I've got an SKU, and I get a couple of regionals to bring me in. So I get Meyer and HEB brings me in, and Walgreens brings me in. Okay.
Yep.
Now I don't have enough distribution here to really make a national ad campaign pay off. However, if I don't do that and my IRI data looks bad, what's the odd that Target's going to bring me in next year, or CVS is going to bring me in next year, when my IRI looks really weak at this Walgreens account that I got? And how likely is a buyer going to buy my story of, well, I'm going to start advertising after you bring me in because I haven't had enough doors yet?
Okay, addressing that last question at the end, they won't believe that for anything. You've got to you have to commit right away. If you're going to advertise, you got to advertise. I mean, the whole, well, if you bring us in, we're really going to market. You're like, no. Now, a wise buyer will look at the ACV based on that unit, on that item, that stock keeping unit, and say, okay, I understand you're in two regionals and a Walgreens. Your ACV might not be 20% of that, and so you can do the math and kind of, okay, what would that look like in Target? But again, there are some things you can do regionally from a marketing standpoint, advertising standpoint, and that's where that marketing person comes in and that agency, because they'll help you understand. We did some serious satellite radio campaigns that were very effective for islands, and you can regionally target those. Very effective.
What happens if I'm in Target? I did poorly. You delisted me. I then hired a good ad agency, and now I'm actually out marketing. How hard is it going to be to get back in?
You've just wasted double your money. It is so much easier and less expensive to spend the money up front on marketing your product than try to do it after that, because that buyer or that next person is probably going to be in the chair in the year because they flip so often. You're not going to get a second chance within the next year. You're probably 3-4 years out before they'll bring you, that thought process.
So a change of buyer, probably a buyer change.
Buyer change. And they do change all the time, but I got to tell you, they talk. They know what's going on.
And they have the history and they have the records.
Absolutely.
So this is really a case of you genuinely have one chance to make that first impression.
Yes. You cannot skimp on marketing. You just can't. I used to challenge my sales team. It's like, we need to sell as much as we possibly can so we can give the marketing team as much as we possibly can. Because those two things go hand in hand. They really do.
So Les, I'm going to tell you what we tell young companies. And I want you to challenge me. If you think I'm wrong, tell me we're wrong. When a new brand comes into us, and we're a $3 million, we're a $5 million Amazon brand, whatever the case is, and we want to get into retail. And we find out, well, Walmart will give them a 500 store test, or CVS will give them a 1,500 store test, or they'll put them in the health hubs, 1,800 health hubs, whatever the case is. First off, I'm not a big fan of those limited store runs because they're very inefficient to advertise. But what we try to tell people is simply this. When you're rolling out, you're an Amazon brand, you're doing advertising, you're getting a TV campaign together, radio campaign, you're probably going to get a couple of regionals to say yes because they're quicker to say yes because they're looking for unique.
Yep.
Because they know they don't have buying power.
Yep.
And we get one retailer. Now, my experience has been, if CVS says yes, Walgreens says no. If Walgreens says yes, CVS says no. Because the buyer at the other place just says, I'll just look at IRI. I'm not going to take a risk. I'll just wait and see how this thing does. So what we try to tell these companies is, for the first 24 to 36 months of your retail career, you're not selling product to be profitable. You're trying to pass an audition. Would you agree with that?
I would absolutely agree with that. Yes. And the rate of your marketing spend, that line item on your P&L is going to be large. It just is.
It's going to be your biggest vendor.
Absolutely. And as you grow, obviously that'll come down as a percent, but initially you're spending a lot of your money on that advertising. It's just, yeah.
We tell people once they've matured that their ad budget should be in the 15 to 20 bracket.
Yes.
But we tell people on day one, it's in the 50 to 100% bracket. Would you agree with that?
Yes, probably closer to 100%, especially digital. Like if you're digitally native and you're initially on Amazon and growing e-com, you're going to be spending closer to 100%. Now, again, when you back down, it's in the 15 to 20 range. You'll catch it.
But you're investing in the future.
Yes.
The other thing I always try to tell people is more money is lost every year by brands who underspent on their marketing than the brands who may have overspent on their marketing.
Yeah, good point.
Absolutely. For the rare occasion somebody overspent, dollar-wise, more companies went out of business and crippled themselves by the underspending. It is, and this is why you need the right who's, everybody, because this is the majority of people that are in the CPG world that are in this area. You're an innovator, you're a visionary, you're an inventor, you're a scientist, you're a tinkerer. You created a product. You came up with a better mousetrap. And that's your unique ability. That's your gift. You came up with a better mousetrap that people like to buy, that people like to use. Now you need the who's who know how to get it on the shelf and know how to get it off the shelf. And I promise you, it's a different skill set than knowing how to make it.
Absolutely.
It's a different skill set knowing how to finance it. So let me give you an example. Les, I'm going to go back to Target for a minute because you've got experience there. I'm a new brand. I come into Target. I have a $25 pain product that's doing well. And you decide to bring it in. How many pieces is my initial order going to be?
Oh, about 3 per store.
3 per store times roughly 2,000.
Yeah, call it 2,000. So 6,000 units ish.
And then how about DC?
They may stuff a couple extra cases per DC for fast moving stores. Not many. You call it an extra 1,000 units.
Okay, so let's say that the initial order is 7,000 pieces. How long will it be before I see any money?
It could be. I mean, it could be 90, 120. It could be 6 months. It really could. It's
okay.
Whatever your terms are. I mean, there's discounts on terms and by all the time the reconciliation happens, you're 90, 120 days in probably before you see a check.
All right, so let's do the math here. Let's say we've got a winning product. We've got a winner. And my $25 product, if I was selling a piece per week per store, you'd probably be happy as the buyer, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm selling 2,000 pieces a week. I may not see any money till week 12 or week 16.
Yeah. Fair.
Okay. So I'm 32,000 pieces into Target now because every week they're going to send me a purchase order. And if I don't ship it, they're going to fine me. So now I'm 36,000 pieces into Target before I have any money. Now, just for fun, I'm going to go to a calculator here. I got to do this because I got to know this. All right. So I've got this $25 item. So I'm selling it to you for what? $15 roughly?
Let's call it 15 for easy math. Sure.
So 15 times 2,000. So I'm shipping you $30,000 a week.
Yep.
And I'm not going to see any money for what? Week 16?
Call it 16.
You now have $500,000 of my money. That's $480,000. Now, of that $480,000 I'm owed, how much will I get that time? Because I'm not going to get all 480,000, am I?
No, no. So depending on, did you ship in full, complete, on time? Were you fined? Were you not fined?
I did everything right.
What's your, then there, let's say your terms might be 2%, 30 net 31. I mean, whatever it is, or 2%, 60. So they're getting a discount off of what you ship them if they pay on time.
And on time could be 2% 60, right?
Could be 2% 60. A lot of people are pushing 90 now. I'm like,
2% 90. I've seen it. Actually, I know one account that's 2% 120.
Oh my goodness. And so, but then there's the gray area. It's kind of, well, they paid in 65 days. Well, but they still took the discount. And so then it's like, well, I'll go back and argue, well, Target's an important customer. We don't want to tick them off. So it's just, you have to kind of weigh how much, so you're not getting the full $480,000 that you should.
No, I'm probably getting month one, right?
Correct. Yeah, what you initially shipped them. So you might get the $70,000 you shipped on the first 7,000.
Right. So I get that money while I'm still shipping.
Oh yeah.
This is why you need a CFO, because you need somebody who knows the industry, who can sit down and say, Walmart is going to be $500,000 for the rest of our life. Walgreens is going to be $750,000 for the rest of our life. CVS is going to be $500,000. Walmart's going to be $1 million. All of this cash flow needs to be figured out, because these are literally permanent investments you're going to make in these retailers as long as you're there, right?
Yes, you hit on the head. You have to have somebody internally that understands cash flow, right? Cash is king, and so if you don't understand that, you're going to get upside down very, very quickly. I mean, that's why all these companies, you talk Shark Tank, right? And they're going on Shark Tank, and what do you need the money for? Well, I got to buy inventory. Well, why do you have to buy inventory? Because they've already shipped on. They don't have any cash yet. It's truly just taking care of their purchase orders.
Mm-hmm.
Buying raws. Yeah.
Yeah. Typically, I would say a single SKU product probably needs $5 to $10 million in funding just to roll receivables. And that's assuming they just have average sales.
Right. And yeah, if you get into, let's say, 30, 40,000 doors across the US, you're in Target and Walmart, and maybe you get Dollar General, that's 20,000 doors, whatever it is. It is not an inexpensive proposition.
Right. Now let's imagine you have 4, 5, 6 SKUs.
Yes.
And it all just multiplied. So understand that these big retailers, they're big and successful because they operate on your money.
Yep.
They're really in the real estate business. They're really in the business of selling real estate or renting real estate by the square inch, aren't they?
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I stress succeed digitally first, right? Succeed digitally first. And then when you get that cash flow coming in, don't go buy a new house yet. If you're looking to invest in, and want to go brick and mortar, have that cash kind of stockpile a little bit so you can go to brick and mortar and do it successfully.
You mean the new McLaren or the Ferrari in the first year is not a great plan?
Well, okay, between you and I, Mark, maybe. I'd love to. But yeah, you have to have, again, think long-term for your business. It's not a flash in the pan type of industry. There's a ton of, digitally native brands that come out there, want to go brick and mortar, and there's more that fail than succeed. They're just done.
So here's the last thing I'm going to leave you with, folks, and then we're going to find out from Les how he can help you. Les, do you know of an industry other than maybe the tech world? Do you know of an industry where an idea can become a fortune as fast as it can in our world?
Great question.
Because how many fortunes have you seen built in 5 and 6 years?
Yeah. I don't, and again, I've been kind of in this industry for 30 years, and it's exciting. It's fun. There is a lot of newness out there. A lot of newness. And you can make some very good money if you have all of your ducks in a row and you know what you're doing. You really can.
I mean, I'm going to use an example. A client of ours, former client, was Cremo Shave Cream.
Oh, yeah.
We started Cremo off,
Mhm.
and in 5 years, they sold for $300 million.
Edgewell, right? Wasn't it Edgewell?
Edgewell bought them, yes. We've had many of our clients who have had 100, 200, 300, 400 million dollar buyouts in 5, 6, 7 years. So this is the reason why don't build your company based on what I'm trying to do today. Build your company on where I want it to be 5, 6 years from now. Bring in the talent that knows how to run a $70 million brand, not a $7 million brand.
Nailed it. Yes.
Because it's like trying to go on vacation without a roadmap. We're going to go to California. Which direction is it? Well, I think it's west from here. We'll figure it out. You'll get there eventually, but it might be a really ugly path along the way.
Yeah.
You need the wagon master who has already trailed this blaze.
You have to have that big company mentality in hiring, and you hit it, hiring the who, hiring those people that know how to get you there, even though you are a $7 million brand, but you know what? You could be a $70 million brand in 4 years. And that is reality.
Very doable in our industry.
Yeah. And so getting those people and the correct people in the chair, my old boss used to tell me, it's like, get the people on the bus sitting in the right seats. And having those people that have done it before, the proven track record, can help you get there.
Now, Les, I'm assuming there's a lot of people out there who are listening who are thinking about maybe I need some internal help like this. They may not know what position exactly they're after. So is there a way that they can, will you consult with them? Will you have a conversation with them and look at their business and see where the holes are and help them figure out what they need, what holes they need to plug?
Absolutely. I love to talk to people. That's pretty much what I do all week is I'm constantly on the phone talking to the prospective clients, contractors, and so forth. And so I will do a lot of just phone calls with people and what I initially think that they need. I was working with one company. It's like I initially thought, you guys need a marketing person. And listening to them after a while, it's like, no, you need a CFO. You've got to understand where your cash is and what's going on before you can even get to the marketing piece. And so I'll have that discussion with them. We'll go back and forth. And what do you think? And where do you want to go? Who do you want to be when you grow up, kind of thing. And identifying kind of those needs and those fractional executives that you can integrate into their company is kind of what I do. And then once we've kind of qualified that and we build a relationship, then it's like, okay, I've got some people I think that would make sense for you to bring on fractionally to help you with your business.
So tell us the best way for people to be able to reach out to you and talk to you.
Absolutely. You can go to my website, CPG Integrated, all one word, .com.
Ooh, almost like CPG Insiders.
Almost.
That's pretty close, yes.
So CPGintegrated.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. You look me up, Les Hamilton. Also, CPG Integrated has a LinkedIn page there, but I'm fairly accessible. And then email, if you're going to email me, it's just les.hamilton@cpgintegrated.com.
So, folks, if you go to the show notes for this episode, so the Les Hamilton episode, go to the show notes. There'll be links to the website, links to his email. So you don't need to worry about writing it down right now. You can go find it later. And Les, that has been awesome. I appreciate you being here. Maybe sometime you'll come back in the future and we'll have some other discussions. Because these are the conversations sometimes that are really good for people, because sometimes it's good to just hear a couple of people that have been at it forever talk about the war stories of what it takes to succeed in this business.
Oh, we didn't even talk about any war stories, but we could absolutely talk war stories. That'd be a whole nother hour.
We could do a whole war. That's an interesting idea, Justin. What do you think? A war stories episode.
I think that'd be great.
I got some doozies for you too. Anyway, side note.
Oh, I got to tell you, I could probably do an entire episode just on the things I've seen clients do wrong.
Mm-hmm.
We could do an episode just on the biggest mistakes I've ever seen episode.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
That's an idea, Justin. Maybe we should do a biggest mistakes we've ever seen show.
Your biggest screw up that you've had professionally. Funny.
Yeah, the biggest screw ups ever. Folks, if you enjoyed today's podcast, make sure you go to wherever you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star review. If you're not subscribed, hit the little subscribe button so you don't miss any episodes. Thanks, Les, for being here. Folks, go to the show notes, get Les's information, have a conversation with him. It's free. You might find that there's the right person out there, that right who might just be out there that can literally just transpose your entire business into a whole nother level. See you on the next episode. If you're looking to greatly increase sales on your CPG product, don't hesitate to contact us at Jekyll & Hyde Advertising and Marketing. By the way, the only advertising agency with a guaranteed result. Just go to jekyllhydeagency.com or feel free to give us a call at 800-500-4210.